Want to? Are we the only ones? I'm Kathy, and today I want to talk about Nolan Wells. The Nolan Wells case is out of Mississippi. He is a young man who was a promising football player, and he was on a boat, 4th of July, for a 4th of July party. He was the only black, I don't know if he was, I feel like there was another black friend that said he shouldn't have left him alone. But anyway, it was a boat of white kids, and he was their like token black friend. And I'm gonna say that because I'm assuming that that had to be what it was, because they are accused of basically foul play, because he didn't make it back and they did. He was a strong swimmer. He was a top shape. He was very in shape. His dad was saying he was tip top shape athlete, so he should have been able to swim. And there were a lot of people at this party. So most of the investigators and the witnesses can't understand how, like, if he was drowning, and including the Cajun Navy who were helping, they can't understand if he was drowning how nobody would have noticed if he was splashing around, screaming for help. The friends are saying that he had mentioned that he wanted to stay behind on the island and talk to some, he had like romantic female interests, and he was trying to talk to her. When people have interviewed her, she said that he had said to her he was going to go back with his friends. So that is part of the inconsistencies. One of the most glaring issues is that the mother, Nolan Wells' mom, used Life 360 to try to find his phone. And when they found the phone, it was at one of the white male friends' houses, one of their homes. So she suspects that they were trying to delete the videos or text messages or anything incriminating. What I find absolutely crazy is that these people that were on the boat that left their friend behind, Nolan Wells, and now he's been found dead, is that they're not under arrest. I don't understand why they're not being held, and they didn't go through a bail process or anything like that. Um, I think it's also ironic that he is a direct descendant of I.W. Wells, who was a civil rights champion. She fought against lynching. And the historical context of this is jarring. It is concerning that the people of Mississippi are not coming out with the history that they have, not trying to protect this family, not trying to prove that they have changed. And so, therefore, we are forced to come to the conclusion that foul play and a cover up is underway. The Cajun Navy helped find Nolan Wells' body. They found it on July 6th. They have also voiced their concern that the body was not found until 2 days after. It should have floated by July 5th, is what they're saying. But instead, they didn't find it until July 6th. They're concerned what that means. I think there's a lot of bias going on, because if it was a bunch of black kids and one white student that didn't make it back, they would probably be in jail right now. So I am feeling really heavy, because I obviously understand that there's some BS going on. The family's hired attorney Ben Crump. I'm so happy to hear that he's representing them, because he is a champion of families that have been marginalized and been wronged. And I believe that he's won most of, if not all of, the cases that he has brought to trial. I hope that the family will be able to get justice and at least get some answers. Like, the Poor mother. Nolan Wells' mom is a nurse, and there are racist trolls that are going on to her nurse profile. I guess there's some kind of like review system where people can just go on and review a nurse, and they're giving her 1-star reviews, and it's just plummeting her rating. And it's only because they're racist trying to hurt a mother who's already grieving the death, if not murder, of her child. I think it shows a lot about how humanity is in the United States specifically is just going into the lowest levels of scumbag behavior. I can't understand how we've let it get this bad. Like, it's bad enough that this woman has to deal with her son's death and the foul play that's occurring and whatever challenges through the bureaucracy to find out the truth. But to have people troll her while she's grieving is truly one of the most disgusting things that I have ever read. I cannot believe people do that. What kind of disgusting person, or even if it's bots, what kind of person programmed this to occur? And like, that's just, it is vile. The amount of hatred that has been sort of like normalized in American society, bullying behavior has gotten so out of hand that it is it's like expected, right? And then you also know the stats where it's like only 35% of the people online are like human beings. So then you have to really like take it with a grain of salt. One thing I notice all the time, switching gears, talking about like different types of families. So Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, there's a lot of news about how their kids are removing their last name from their legal name, removing Pitt from their legal name. And Suri Cruz also just did that too. So now I think she'll be probably Siri Holmes is my guess. But one of the things that I noticed consistently when there's a post about Angelina Jolie's kids that talk about them removing Pitt from their last name, every single comment, whether it's a TMZ or like it's like a big Instagram page, will always be pro Brad Pitt. And I think that's not possible. Because if I talk to people on the street, that is not how it polls at all. And so for it to be almost 100%, unless I'm like the lonely person saying worst dad ever in the comment section, he has almost a 0 negative comment like consistency, which I find very suspect. And I think that extremely leans like patriarchally, like how crazy. Because we have to remember that Angelina Jolie passed legislation under the Biden administration. And obviously the government under the Biden administration read the FBI report about the private plane incident. Obviously, they know that they trust the FBI. And so they backed her in this legislation. And yet, people still doubt and think that she's manipulating their kids. Like, they were on the plane, guys. They were witness to everything. They were victims. He assaulted the children. Whether you want to say, okay, slap, technical, strangle, choke, whatever wording they used, there was an assault. There was trauma. And we can see the effects of that trauma based on their reaction. And to question that at all is ridiculous. And so I just see these weird, I mean, we know, but there's a level of like being in our face that is so mentally abusive in a way to society. And I think we're being inundated with that right now, where we're like dealing with not the acceptance, but the reality check of how much predatory, pedophile, predatory, just sexual fetish behavior is almost like the engine of all the powerful structures and people that hold all of the government and all of the money financial institutions together. And it's extremely alarming because the reality is like, look, of course, like if you think about how wealth works, the more you accumulate, the more you want to experience. When it first starts out, we're talking clothes, designer bags, cars, homes, right? Then it's properties. Then it's maybe businesses. And then after you conquer all those mountains, there's just like a sense of boredom, perhaps, that comes with people that have too much excess. And this is what we see of that now is like when there's unchecked excess and access from people that also were not bound by the same ethical guidelines that most of us Americans are or people are, then you see what happens when the money isn't taxed and then the wealth is building at such a rate that when it's consolidated with other people in a coalition that have also the same amount of wealth, how you could literally buy up everything that would affect any criticism towards those people and any accountability towards any of their extracurricular activities that eventually go from, oh, fun parties, a yacht party, a white party, everybody's dressed, drinking, popping bottles, hanging out, seeing celebrities, schmoozing. Then it's like eventually romantical. Then it's eventually like dominating, having like a harem kind of vibe, seeding the planet with their legacy, right? This starts to go into like a mental illness situation where you have too much money. I don't think anybody can escape it. I think like people that are self-aware that have that kind of wealth growth, but there's not that many of them, and we can see what's going on. It like literally creates a mental illness in a person to have so much wealth and no accountability. Back in the ancient Rome society, the Roman society used to have this thing that we now have the word ostracized from. But it was basically like every, I don't know if it was every year, but I want to say it was something like that. They would vote for who they thought was the worst politician and the most corrupt politician. And whoever that was, that person would be banished, hence ostracized or whatever it was, the Latin word, for 10 years. And I'm like, oh my God, we should bring that back because that is the checks and balances they had back in the day. I mean, it's not the worst idea. That's all I'm saying. So, and in all this kind of mess, we still haven't seen Mitch McConnell. Don't know where he's at. They have a proof of life photo that they just released yesterday where he's in the hospital bed. Same thing. He's sitting on the left in the photo. From his position, he's on the right, but when we were looking at it, he's on the left, and his wife, Elaine Chao, is on the right. But he's also wearing a button-down shirt again. I'm like, if you're in the hospital, you're in a gown, bro. I need a video. These photos are not doing it. And then Hunter Biden is like on one. He's hilarious. He's one of the best, probably like internet voices right now. He was basically calling out the DC gay mafia, which he says consists of Josh Raleigh, Speaker Johnson, and Stephen Miller. And it was Lindsey Graham too. And I'm like, oh my gosh. No doubt. I mean, look at Nick Fuentes was like talking about how he'd never, like these women haters, but he's never been with a woman. I'm like, wait, are you straight? Are you gay? Like, it doesn't matter if you're gay, but if you're freaked out about being gay and you're angry about being, I don't know, you're not happy with yourself, and you have to project and then like take this abusive power like mentality and like slash and burn society over it. You may have a mental health disorder. Not may. You probably do. Because why would you do that? Why would you want to be like that? I just think that we got to stop nominating and electing men with mental illness because we see it as strength. Patriarchy is so successful at painting weaknesses in men as strength. Am I the only one that noticed that? Are we the only ones that notice how certain cultural strengths are actually narcissistic personality disorder? I'm just saying. It is very telling that the patriarchy and the patriarchal rules create so many narcissistic oligarchs. And the only checks and balances we even have are not being used. So then who's tougher on crime? Right? I think there are rules for one group of people, and there are a totally different set of rules for another group of people. And they decided, instead of pretending like that was not real, they were going to lay it bare in front of all of us to show us what they can get away with it and to the magnitude and level they can get away with. I would like to believe that if I ever had that much power and wealth, that I would not. No, I know I wouldn't, because I've already had these moments where it tested me like that. But I also empathize with people that do, because look, if you are somebody who was bullied your whole life, I mean, but I was bullied in like fifth and sixth grade. So I think it just takes a weak or strong mind. If you're a weak person, then when you become uber wealthy and powerful, if somehow you fall into that place, you will torment people. If you're a weak-minded person, you have mental illness in terms of when you have power and wealth, that combination in your brain makes you basically like a Bond villain, is how I've explained it earlier. So I think the only thing we can do is shame these people. I think that's all they really like. It's like we're basically, these guys are all trying to show off, right? If we express that we don't care about all of this like peacocking, and that we actually, I mean, honestly, if TV networks and people were watching like YouTube channels where there were shows about people doing good and what they like are putting out into the world that's positive, maybe that would generate enough positive energy so that people would actually want to do that and not be worried about like Instagram face and like trying to be an influencer. But the reality right now is, being an influencer, I think it's now like a degree at ASU. But if you make, I mean, if it's making money, like the reality is like we go to school, we go to college, we take out loans so that we're hoping there's a return on our investment. Uh, the rules have changed, right? Technology's moved so fast that like now having intellect is great. But really, if you have a tactile skill, like being an electrician, being a plumber, you will clear over $250,000 a year. $284,000 a year, I think it was a figure I heard for electricians and plumbers. So, and that was like in Plano, Texas. I can only imagine be even more if you're like living in New York City, or if you're in like Silicon Valley, you'd probably make $500,000, you know? So I think it's maybe it's good that trades are getting a much well overdue respect bump. And, you know, it is time to recognize like there are white collar jobs that are extremely important, but there are some that, like, when it comes to society, do they hurt society? If they're trying to hurt society more than they help society, we have to evaluate how we tax these people. Because if they're not philanthropic, then we're just watching a bunch of like grown man babies go through their like toddler stages of all the different toys and things they feel like they need to buy and accumulate, and what they think being successful and respected looks like versus just being somebody that people respect. and admire naturally. I don't know. Tell me what you think. I really do. Oh, I would like to commend Colin Kaepernick for paying for the autopsy for Nolan Wells. And if any of you are capable of donating to any of those organizations, you can look them up on Google or to Colin Kaepernick. Then you would be supporting something very, very good. All right. Give me a like, follow, subscribe. Thank you for supporting the pod. Give me, I mean, Substack. I'm trying to do different content on different platforms, but YouTube is starting to gain a lot of traction. So I might be doing a lot more shorts over there and, informal posts. So look for that. Thanks to our paid subscribers, I'll be sending out more short form content to you guys for sure. And until next time.